Well, a very good morning. We come on again with a Good Morning Uganda Extra this day. It is the 30th of August in this year 2021. Welcome and thank you so much for joining us again at the beginning of this working week. And of course, the month is ending tomorrow. Now, this is a week rather, that says bye-bye to August, and of course ushers in a new month of September. Welcome and thank you so much for choosing to be with us this morning as we do the final bits of the breastfeeding week or month in this particular month of August. And joining me in studios this morning is a senior nutritionist, Mr. Tim Mateba from the Ministry of Health. You're welcome, Mr. Mateba.
Thank you very much.
Very good morning.
Good morning.
What do you do as a nutritionist?
I do a wide range of activities, but if I was given time, I think I would spend the whole day explaining what a nutritionist does. But by and large, you should be able to know that you cannot stay without the effects of nutrition. I make sure you are healthy, starting from the time when you are a child up to the time when you are an old person.
Okay.
You can imagine, and keep you healthy using food.
Okay.
Yes.
Ugandans don't normally talk about nutrition. They normally talk about balanced diet. What's the difference between a balanced diet and a nutrition? And I think I personally don't understand what a balanced diet is. Whole Jagenda Semakola. I have issues with the balanced diet.
I can
balanced diet is.
Very good. Jagenda, Mr. Jagenda, the issue of a balanced diet is coined to help people to understand how to balance or to mix foods, what you call varieties. But there's nothing like balancing, but as the word may mislead. You just make sure that when you eat your food,
I fail to understand.
Yeah,
when
you
I
eat your food.
I did basic science in I think primary and secondary school.
And
but I fail to understand what a balanced diet is.
The good thing is that you at least you went to school. But for those who may have not gone to school, food is meant to make sure that you grow, you have energy, and you stay healthy.
Sure.
Now, when you have those things achieved through food, then you have balanced. And then we also have to know that to achieve each of those, you must have eaten specific types of foods. Those that give you energy, those that give you the health, so that you are healthy, then those that give you the growth aspect of it. That is exactly what means by balancing. It's not like putting on a weighing scale so that they weigh, they weigh meat and they say this is 1 kilogram. No, no, it's not like that. So, but that's what we call a balanced diet.
And I think what the other people also miss out on a balanced diet is when they eat different types of foods, which at times have the same food values. Now somebody thinks they are balancing and everything they're eating is carbohydrates. Everything they're eating is proteins. Everything they're eating is fiber, in the pretext of because this is different and this is different and this is different. So I am balancing. And they're eating the same food value. And
Mr. Jagenda, the point you have just raised is very, very important. And in the beginning I said those are the three things we are looking at. They should give you energy, growth, and health. Now, if you eat one food which gives you energy, even if it is cassava, flour, maize flour, atapa, all those,
and the chapati.
and chapatis, you have not balanced yet. Until you
even
change.
When you're eating different varieties,
yes,
there's no balance in that.
Those are different foods. Those are
Giving
different foods.
Doing the same thing to the body.
Yeah.
Okay.
And when you say diet, we don't say that when you eat today, for example, and you balance, and I'm using the word balance in quotes, that you eat today maybe you eat a fruit plus a protein like egg or meat or liver, and then you eat some food that gives energy. And you eat once and say, now I've eaten a balanced diet. No, it should be consistent over time again. So the diet is supposed to be over time, not one day. And I have seen when people say, today we have eaten a balanced diet. No, it's not a one-day thing. It should be over time. So this issue of balancing has it needs a lot of explanation away from what we have always had. Okay. Yeah. But it's good to first start from there.
That's important. Now, coming back to your calling, your profession of a nutritionist, did you look at Ugandans having deficiencies in their nutritional lifestyles? I could say that.
Yes.
Yes.
Ugandans are deficient in their diets in a variety of ways. And when we say Ugandans, we are cutting across all age groups.
Sure.
You start with children. You start with like for example, we know that almost 3 out of every 10 children are stunted because of the varieties of food, because of the way we eat.
Deficiency in nutrition.
Yes. And women of reproductive age, before they get to deliver, anemia is one of those things that make you unhealthy. But you'll find that almost, almost slightly above 3 out of every 10 have anemia before they even deliver children. And yet, when you deliver, you lose blood. And when you are pregnant, the demands are too high. Those are women.
That's why they suffer from what they call, I think, post-hemorrhagic something.
Yeah. Postpartum hemorrhage. Okay, let's leave those big words. Yes, when you bleed, you know, when you deliver, you bleed. And if you bleed the little blood that you already have, then you are likely to die. But the main other issue is about across the age brackets, like men. We are now seeing the other side of the malnutrition. People growing bigger than they're supposed to be. We call it obesity, overweight. It's also another big problem. It's actually a kind of malnutrition. So as nutritionists, we don't look at from the side when you lack, but when you do it over.
When you're stunted, it's a problem. When you get obese, it's a problem.
It's obese. If you went to Mwanamujimi in Mulago, then that's when your picture will be very, very clear. And not only Mulago, but also in most of these facilities.
Okay.
You look at children with looking like old people when they're children. That's a picture.
Okay.
It paints a very big picture of malnutrition in Uganda, showing that across the age brackets, we have issues related to malnutrition or not feeding well.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Now, coming back to the issues here of the breastfeeding month or week, we normally hear about the breastfeeding week, and it happens this particular month. Let's sum it up again, getting to the basics. What is it about, and what are we talking to the people about, and what should the people know or learn in as far as breastfeeding is concerned?
You know, in life, the best gift immediately a child is born is breast milk. And if you've never breastfed, then you have missed the best gift of your life. And it's usually supposed to be given at the beginning of the first 1 hour after birth. That's the recommendation that was given by the World Health Organization. It is evidence-based. Now, what you've just asked about the World Breastfeeding Week. This is a week which has been set aside by the World Health Assembly, and agreed that in that 1 week of 1st August to 7th August, it's a week, we commemorate what we call breastfeeding. There are many reasons why, but it's not only in Uganda, but it's international. Now, the main reason here is that because breastfeeding is the core, is the kickstart, is the ignition of life for a child, we need to recognize its role in the growth of a child. But because there were issues related to the decline of those mothers who are breastfeeding, as we go into generations, there was a feeling that, no, let's remind ourselves about the role of breastfeeding. So the idea behind is to make sure that we create awareness about what breastfeeding is, its role, and if you do not breastfeed, what will happen to the child, to the mother, to the father, to the family, to the country. So we know that there are problems. So that week is set aside for all of us, not just one person, not only the mother, to observe why breastfeeding is very important. And in that way, we try to make sure that we rediscover ourselves to make sure that we promote breastfeeding and even protect it.
Isn't it an obvious thing that a woman knows that I am a woman today, I am pregnant, and in a couple of weeks or months I'll be giving birth? And one of the things I'm supposed to do is to breastfeed. Because I was personally breastfed, I know that as a woman, I'll give birth and also breastfeed. We've seen women do this. Does it necessitate a teaching and talking to the people and taking the whole world body to actually emphasize and talk about what we think is a given? It's just like enjoying oxygen. Should anybody make a day for us to breathe and know that, you know, we're supposed to breathe in and out and something like that? We think it should be something that every man or woman should comprehend with ease.
Obvious as it looks, obvious as it appears to be, Mr. Jagenda, we've done some statistics. Even in Uganda, a study was done around 2016, and another one has just been done. We're yet to get the results. But in 2016, the results showed the opposite, that not all children are breastfed according to the required standards.
Okay.
We have what we call optimal breastfeeding. When a child is born, it has been found that if you introduce the baby to breast milk within the first 1 hour, it has better advantages that last for the rest of the life of this child, in terms of how much breast milk the child will take, and therefore, and even to the mother, she's able to give more to the child because it will be available. If you did it early enough. There's also another recommendation that for the first 6 months, the child should be given the breast milk. That breast milk within the first week.
As the only food?
Yes, the only food. And you know, we have
6
these
months.
words, call it exclusive breastfeeding. Nothing else, not even water. Medicine is given only because it is the child is sick, and that is only prescribed. There are many advantages, and some people say, no, it can't work. It works. Breast milk is enough for the first 6 months.
Without a kamonde,
nothing, and around the 4 months, children will want to eat, but this is still enough. Nothing, no problem. There are advantages. It's enough.
If you did that.
If you did that. Because it has been researched. However, when the child reaches 6 months, this breast milk is not enough. I'm giving this story so that we know why we say we are not doing according to the right thing. At 6 months, the child now needs extra food because the breast milk will not provide adequate nutrients or adequate blocks that are supposed to build the body within the breast milk. So we give other foods. Now here we start talking about the other balanced diet you talked about. And we call it the diversified. You diversify the diet for this child to make sure that all the foods that we talked about provide energy, provide health, provide growth are included in the diet. Then you breastfeed the child. Some children have been lucky to be breastfed beyond 2 years, although it's recommended that you breastfeed at least up to 2 years. Some have breastfed up to 3 years, others even go and look after goats and come back and ask the mother, can I have a little? That's okay, there's no problem, because that's breast milk. But at least 2 months, I mean 2 years. Now, the worst comes when you hear the statistics saying that when we say breastfeed your children for at least 6 months, then you do a study and realize that out of 100, if you were to count, only 66 have been able to do that.
On a scale of 100?
Yes. In other words, almost 6 out of every 10 are the only ones. What about the other 4? They are either mixed fed with something else or not breastfed at all. See? So in this case, breastfeeding looks simple, but it is actually as complicated as you maybe as we discover later on as we talk. It's not as easy as we're saying. Okay. Now, there are many reasons why it's like that. The challenge is that the mother is, for us in our settings, the mother is seen as the team lead, the one who leads in the breastfeeding.
In as far as breastfeeding is concerned?
Yes.
Yes, it should be the mother.
That's what we think.
That's what it should be.
Yes. And because of the same thinking, it's the reason why we have fewer mothers than we expected breastfeeding. That out of 10, there will be 4 who are not breastfeeding according to the recommendation. Now, breastfeeding is a shared responsibility. If you asked me to conclude if it was a statement, I would say it's a shared responsibility. And let me tell you, as a man, it's good that I'm the one talking. Many times you think that the mother is the only one holding the breast and therefore should be the one to give the baby the breast milk. But we also know that this mother, while she's away, she goes away with the breast and the baby will not. So what makes the mother go away and leave the baby unbreastfed?
Is what the man should be providing to keep the woman here.
Will the mother have enough breast milk to give this baby? And also make sure that the other family issues go on without being disrupted. It actually also goes on to say that the frequency of breastfeeding matters. How many times you breastfeed in a day? Now imagine this mother has gone to the market and left the child at home, has gone to the garden, has left the child at home, has gone to school, has come to work in UBC, has left the child at home, will you really make at least 8 times in a day to breastfeed this child? So, yes, there could be breastfeeding, but how much and how many times? So we don't give somebody one finger of banana and say, I gave him a toke. You must give adequate food. Yes. So it is a complicated thing, much as it looks simple and needs shared responsibility.
How much breast milk does a baby need on a daily? Just trying to quantify.
Yes. The baby does not need to be measured in terms of, the milk does not need to be measured in terms of liters. The baby must breastfeed up to satisfaction.
Not in terms of liters.
No.
You can't say you've had enough today.
As long as the baby wants, the baby should breastfeed until the baby sleeps, if that's the case. And then you say, okay, fine. And the mother must make sure that the baby is breastfeeding at least, not less than 8 times for those children who are still less than 6 months. So that the frequency, and by the way, it will be both day and the night. I'm talking about a 24-hour period. This is the, if you were to measure, then you'd fail, because we do not eat the same way. Yes, some people eat more, others eat less. Sure. So I think the idea of
you
how
can't
much,
measure it in terms of meals or liters or whatever that is.
The child should feed until she keeps quiet or he keeps quiet.
Let's talk about the legal framework. Is it favorable for breastfeeding? But to even start with, must we even legislate on breastfeeding, on something that is natural, cultural, religious, and do we even have to legislate on a breastfeeding in this country?
We wouldn't have gone into the issues of legislation, because the onus of breastfeeding is on the family, the mother, but even the community and the environment in which you are. But you see, legislation is because I've just highlighted to you how difficult it is for the mother to breastfeed the children or the child from birth, exclusively up to 6 months, then continue up to 2 years. If you do not legislate, you will find that some of the gaps are taken advantage of. For example, when the mother, immediately the baby is born, you've seen the people who go to the hospital, for example, carrying gifts for the child. And I guess the first gift, powdered milk, breast milk substitute, a feeding bottle. You've come to see a mother who has just delivered, and here is the gift for the baby.
Powdered milk?
Yes.
A feeding bottle?
Can you imagine whether that will help breastfeeding to take place? But you know where you got it. You bought it, not so. And when you buy it, the person from whom you bought got money and will want more money and more money. And if money is not coming, then breastfeeding becomes a competitor. So you can see we now want to reduce competition between breastfeeding and those who get money from selling what we call breast milk substitutes. So this breast milk substitute should be regulated. If you do not, then sooner or later you'll find that breastfeeding, because mothers then will prefer to give breast milk substitute.
How should that be done, Tim? How should we do that? Because a Uganda here in Kirabo is selling breastfeeding substitutes. I am selling breastfeeding milk. Rather, I'm selling tinned milk. I'm selling whatever, the utensils and everything. Tim here has a comrade whose wife has given birth, and out of goodwill, they're buying milk to bring to the hospital. How should the laws now curtail that? I'm only thinking.
You are right. First of all, that's why we have the breastfeeding week. It's because one of the things that happen is the issue of aggressive marketing of breast milk substitutes. The way you are marketing, you are advertising for example, for the sale of a product. Say maybe you are stationary, you sell all your products, sodas and so on. Those should be curtailed. Advertising should be regulated. In fact, you are not supposed to advertise. If it's a regulation, I should be able to say that to regulate them, you are not supposed to advertise to the mothers, whether on TV, on
social media,
anywhere,
radio, everywhere.
And there we can control you. Another one is you should not be able to access the mothers at the health centers we expect health workers to be able to give those messages that promote breastfeeding. So if we allowed you to go in...
You're coming to visit, but please don't come with milk.
Those intentions of
don't,
milk.
Don't come with... Exactly.
Or even if you have a canteen at the rest center, we don't want to see...
You selling that?
Selling. The hospital can have its own opportunity, and we're using the word regulate. We're not saying banning. Regulate the sale of those breast milk substitutes. Obviously, there will be some children, either because the mother is dead and or abandoned,
or
and
they may need problem.
Now, that's the worst case scenario. But we don't want this advertisement, which discourages mothers from breastfeeding. But we want to promote those messages that promote breastfeeding for the good of the child and the mother and the family. So that is the very reason how the regulation can be conducted.
Okay.
We control advertising.
Okay. Well, that's very important. We'll just take a break and return. But when we return on the issue of legislation, I want to know, because I think you also have issues with the Employment Act, I think the Foods and Drug Act also. I want to know what you think is missing in those particular legislations that needs to be put there, and to even know whether members of parliament, I don't know who represents you now. I don't know where you go to, I don't know who you go to actually now. Whether you go to the workers' members of parliament, whether you go to any member of parliament, but of course there is a committee on health in parliament. I don't know whether you've reached out to them to see that what is missing in the laws already here, the enacted laws, can be put in to help us manage breastfeeding. We'll take a break and return shortly. My name is Jagenda Semakula, Ziko Soka this morning.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Uganda, today is a great day to work towards your dreams. Dial star 185 star 7 hash and select savings to save as low as 500 Ugandan shillings on regular savings or 250,000 Ugandan shillings for fixed deposits. Airtel Money Super Saver is powered by KCB Bank Uganda. Airtel Money, instant, secure, borderless. T's and C's apply.
I'm Dr. Henry Mwevesa, the Director General, Ministry of Health. I'm here to join the rest of the world to commemorate the World Breastfeeding Week, which in Uganda we have decided to carry on for the rest of the month of August as our breastfeeding month. And during this month, we want to utilize it to educate our community and teach them more about breastfeeding because it is a big problem in our country. The theme for this year is Protect Breastfeeding, a shared responsibility. When we talk of shared responsibility, we mean all of us are responsible. Us in the health sector, the religious leaders, the community leaders, political leaders, and even the husbands. It is all our responsibility to promote and support and protect breastfeeding in our country. What do we mean by protecting breastfeeding? Because we know that there are so many milk formula which are being used by many mothers. So we have to protect our children from aggressive advertisement of using food supplements and encourage our mothers to breastfeed for at least the first 6 months, exclusive breastfeeding. We know that about 12% of our population or our mothers do not exclusively breastfeed for the first 6 months. And these children are given supplementary feeds, which they should not be receiving at this time. Encourage mothers to breastfeed for at least 6 months before you give children any other supplements. Then after 6 months, you can start giving children supplements. So as part of preparation for this breastfeeding month, we have prepared appropriate guidelines, we have prepared counseling materials, we have prepared cards which will help in counseling, and various materials that will help the workers, our health workers, that will help the mothers to promote breastfeeding in this country.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Welcome back from the break. We continue the discussion on the breastfeeding month, and we ending the month of breastfeeding. My name is Jagenda Samakola Ziksoka on Good Morning Uganda Extra, and with me in studios is Mr. Tim Mateba. Tim Mateba. I just looked at Dr. Mwevesa, so I was going to call you Tim Mwevesa. Tim Mateba is a nutritionist from the Ministry of Health, joining us this morning to talk about breastfeeding as a shared responsibility. We're talking about legislation, Ndugu Mateba. Let's conclude that.
Legislation, as we conclude, is very important to regulate the aggressive marketing of breast milk substitutes, so that breast milk takes a center stage, and we promote it for the good of our children, for the good of our mothers, for the good of our families, and for the good of our nation. Yes, because children who are healthy are more productive to the nation than those who are not.
The Food and Drug Act, the Implement Act,
yes,
and maybe any other legislation, how do they affect us in as far as breastfeeding is concerned?
When now it becomes even more complicated for mothers who are employed. And I'm talking about mothers because they are the ones holding the breast milk now. When mothers are supposed to be breastfeeding, they have a challenge also trying to be at work. And you've recommended that they should breastfeed exclusively for 6 months. One of the good things is that we have a maternity protection, and we give maternity leave. But that doesn't take 6 months in Uganda, for example. And you may not be able to breastfeed for 2 years without going back to work. So the question is, how do we make sure that the legislation or the Employment Act supports these mothers to breastfeed? This is one of the things that we need to look at, and we request all stakeholders to be in control. You had asked me, for example, in Parliament. That's where things work out from. Those employment acts cannot come to stand unless Parliament is on our side. We have got the Social Services Committee. We have got and we have also our doctors there who chair those meetings, or even are members of those committees. Many times we interact with them. We already have a regulation, which we want to have. It's running, but it's now outdated, needs a review to make sure that when mothers have delivered, they should be protected from the breast milk substitutes. But we also have the act which says go away for 60 days. Now,
60 days is 2 months.
Yes, only. So what mothers sometimes do, they first get the annual leave, pack it aside, add it to the other 60 to make it 90, but you still have another
a deficit.
Yes, a deficit to make 6 months.
A deficit of another 3.
Yes.
Another.
So where do they get it from? So either they keep dodging around to make sure they breastfeed, or they accept to be with the employer and sustain the job
at the expense of the child.
So in that case,
so there's a gap in that law.
Yes, we want to make sure that we make it a policy. All institutions should be supported, but also should come to know that if a mother came, for example, in UBC to work and she has a baby, we should be having a chance to give her a chance to go and breastfeed. It could be either here, or you allow her during lunch break to go and breastfeed. Besides teaching mothers how to express breast milk to leave it at home. You know, you can express breast milk using a hand, but it's better to have the baby breastfeeding
directly,
because there is all of us who have,
there are chances of contamination here.
That bonding you get from your mother, that this is my mother, is because you breastfed, not from a cup
from her,
but from the breast. if on day one they gave you a breast milk from a cup and you never see the mother, you may never know that that's your mom, and the bonding will never be there. So it is directly connected with direct breastfeeding, and that's what it should be.
So you're demanding
provide a breastfeeding corner. I don't want to say corner, but an area. It can be a corner, it can be anything. We tried it in Parliament, we will not yet gone there to inspect to see what happens. But there are certain things that we see that make it a breastfeeding corner. Suitable. It should have.
So you want what is at Parliament to be duplicated?
Duplicated in other workplaces. Workplaces.
Private sector
when
inclusive.
I say schools, whether companies, private sector.
Factories, everything.
Yes, even we know. You can have an area where mothers breastfeed from, and make sure that it is facilitated. It is the infrastructure is there, and the
to
babies
accommodate
are
for
care.
every breastfeeding mother, wherever they are.
That would work.
Okay.
We wish that would work, and that's what we want to fight for, to make sure that the breastfeeding is promoted. Those are some of the employment acts that they may be in informal and informal sectors. So we want to see that.
The Food and Drug Act.
The Food and Drug Act. You see, we have the regulation, weak as it may be, or maybe as it may have been, but we want, the biggest problem is enforcement. Enforcement, who are the people going to make sure that no one is violating the code of conduct for promoting breast milk substitutes? If somebody promoted a breast milk by advertising on UBC, how shall we make sure that that person is tracked and followed? You just visit a supermarket. The first thing you see in front there is none. They are always in front there, just in the beginning. Why is it like that? We don't want to see, for example, you putting large labels and say, with a picture of a child, a healthy one, to make sure that the mothers now begin to believe that this one, which is idealizing a good baby, is because they took a breast milk substitute. Those are some, but who is going to enforce?
Okay.
We are there, but we are also limited. Maybe we may, because this regulation needs to be reviewed, so that the inspectors are actually in place, supported, to make sure that they monitor any violation of the regulation of breastfeeding substitutes. So the Drug Act is there, the Food and Drug Act is there.
The regulations are there.
The regulation is there, but enforcement. And even the penalties inside there, because right now, if they found you, they may ask you to pay 3,000 shillings.
Just 3,000? Yeah. Which is
before you even leave, you just pay. It's a penalty.
3,000 Uganda shillings.
Yes.
How about the policy on ECDs, the Early Childhood Development Policy, which I think we launched in 2018?
Yes.
How accommodative is it?
Now, that one is especially for child development in schools.
In schools, that is in schools.
What we want to do is to work with the schools, the Ministry of Education. We are not directly involved, but we work with them.
The Ministry of...
I may not be able to speak
so much about it,
but I know that that's one of the areas. If you wanted to promote breastfeeding, you make sure that children don't miss out when they go in the early childhood development
because if
centers.
they've not breastfed well, then you're going to teach them and you're going to struggle with them.
Cognitive development.
The cognitive
development in the brain will not, and they emphasize from there that for us to have a early childhood development, you must feed the child well.
Okay.
Besides other things.
Very important. When we talk about breastfeeding, who are the major actors and what's the responsibility? What are they supposed to do to promote breastfeeding, to protect and promote breastfeeding? Who are these actually as the main actors?
We start from the mothers themselves. The mothers need the information. The information to the effect that they need to think about breastfeeding as very, very important to their children and to themselves. Those who think, if they don't have information, they'll start thinking that when you breastfeed, it's not trendy. They may even take on what goes on in social media. That when you breastfeed, your breast will fall flat.
Actually, that's what I also wanted to ask you about, because we have breastfeeding mothers who are urban and also the breastfeeding mothers who are rural. Now these two behave differently. A 21-year-old girl in the village will want to breastfeed, and I think she will do that. She will find it very easy to do it. A 21-year-old in Kampala or in any urban setting will not want to breastfeed because that will take her away from her shape. She wants to give birth and stay as though she's never given birth. Maintain the size, maintain the looks, maintain the everything. They don't want to change their closets.
So, such mothers need information. They need what we would call behavior change communication, specifically coined for them to be able to understand why we need to breastfeed. That because when you breastfeed, your breast will fall is not correct. Because even those who have never breastfed anyway, for whatever reason, They have breastfeed, definitely. So it's not about breastfeeding. Yes. So no one should deceive them. The other one is that they feel that breastfeeding is cool. When you don't breastfeed, it feels cool.
Yeah.
It's trendy.
Breastfeeding is not cool.
Yeah. If you breastfeed, you are outdated. Now, surely that such a message needs to be countered. And there's a lot of it. We can use other methods. We can use very many, especially social media. For those who are urban, they are always on their phones checking. Maybe one way of doing that is to make sure that we reach them using social media, but also including the peers and the mentor mothers who understand this, because it is really bad. But we also have other stakeholders, the fathers or the spouses, that if you do not take care of your wife, if you are involved in gender-based violence, if you do not provide for support for this mother to be given time to breastfeed, then what we shall be talking about breastfeeding optimally, but we shall not be there, because then the mothers will be disrupted. So the father must give support, financial, physical, even if it means also, especially when the mother is busy and maybe she has gone to work for now. And you can express breastfeeding.
You are not addressing absentee fathers.
Now, let me tell you, that is one area, a father, but there could be an absentee father, but there is where the mother is staying. That needs a family support.
Sure.
Yes, family support, community members need to be supportive. They should be able to understand. Then we have the community. The community that understands that breastfeeding. And if they found you not breastfeeding, they would ask what happened. But if they are not asking those questions, then the community is also doing a service to you. And of course, for us, we have the policies. At national level, we have the policies, but then their implementation is one thing. So we must make sure that policies are not just generated, but they reach the intended users. Health workers should be able to give the information. They are very, very important. Then we have community leaders. So the whole cross spectrum of supporters is there. All what we need is to make sure that we congregate together in one message and say, this is what we want. Breastfeeding is important. This is how it is done, to be able to achieve it.
Okay. How is it supported by the ministry itself as a project in there? And I'm looking at budget appropriations now, whether as a vote or, because I'm now looking at it from that angle. How is it supported from the government now through the Ministry of Health itself?
We currently, financial support has never been, and I don't know whether it will ever be adequate. But what we need is at least adequate appropriation of funding towards the promotion of breastfeeding. We have partners like UNICEF, WFP, USAID funded programs. Some of them come in handy and give us the support. But government of Uganda should be at the forefront in terms of what you put there. I don't have the figures, but I can assure you that the breastfeeding, probably people assume it's breast milk is free, so you don't need to give anything. So we try to, but it is still inadequate in terms of funding. But we've managed to have all the environment, teaching, giving messages, but it's a continuous and ongoing practice. We have what we call a baby-friendly health facility initiative, where we want to make sure that all health facilities are friendly to babies. If a health facility is a friend of babies, it must have a certain number of ticks in a list where we say, okay, for you are a friend of, or we call it baby-friendly health facility, whether it's private or government. And that we want to make sure that in that facility, you become a center of excellence for breastfeeding. And once it started from there, then it can link to communities, because this health facility can even have outreaches that promote breastfeeding as one of their core ticks that we tick on that list. So again, as a government, those are some of the things we promote. Breastfeeding through baby-friendly health facility initiative.
Okay.
Yes.
Very important. Now, the past breastfeeding week or month in 2020 and this particular one have all come in the middle of a pandemic. And I just want to know how you've managed through the COVID pandemic, where we have challenges running back and forth. The same breastfeeding mothers do not have enough food to eat for themselves. They're asking Mama Nabaja to help them here and there. They're losing jobs here. They're losing all the things. I just want to know how challenging it's been in as far as breastfeeding is concerned, especially for 2020 and 2021.
The beauty about breast milk is that it's manufactured in the body. The only problem now comes is how do you make sure it's manufactured in adequate amounts with good quality to make sure the baby benefits.
Because it doesn't just come.
Yes. Then the pandemic comes in with creating all sorts of fear. That that's why we wear masks. If you do not, then your baby will get, or from the baby to you. Now, we also have a policy on that, a guideline on that. If a mother has, for example, has been confirmed to have
she's COVID positive,
but
she has a baby who is
and has a baby, and the baby maybe is actually free of COVID. The message is that you do not have to fear or worry. Refusing to breastfeed the baby is worse than breastfeeding the baby.
I thought a mother would be protecting the baby from COVID-19.
Now that is social distancing, which is not practical between the mother and the baby. It's only practical between big people. So when we talk about social distancing, physical distancing, the only one which doesn't apply is between the mother and the baby. She has to. Because it's worse if you did that. So you weigh the options. So here the guidance is that the mother should be able to breastfeed as long as she's protected. She should wash her hands with water and soap.
Put on a mask.
She should protect herself with a mask.
Sanitize.
And even make sure that where you sit, you sanitize surfaces.
Because COVID can't come through the breast.
There is no COVID in the breast.
There's no COVID.
It's not there. And that's the advantage. At least so far, research has shown that there is no COVID
from the breast.
In the breast.
In the breast.
So the baby should breastfeed. As long as you take care of those standard operating practices to prevent infection to the baby.
So you've had those challenges, and of course convincing mothers and telling them.
It is not as, like you've seen, it's not only in health, but convincing somebody, even at home, that you have COVID and should social distance, is itself a problem among adults. How about this mother who loves the baby and fears that the baby will get? So it takes a lot of talking and sweet talking, communicating to convince that no, it will not be. But I think some mothers have found out that it's okay. So we really find that, yes, they take the message. We haven't done an assessment yet to find how many mothers were found to be positive with COVID and failed to breastfeed.
Okay.
But I know that those ones are ongoing activities in the pipeline. Sooner or later, we shall be able to find out, to quantify the actual impact of failure to breastfeed as a result of COVID. But we have the message.
Talk about the other things like the EMCTC, the elimination of mother-child transmission. Now we into HIV/AIDS and the other sicknesses also, like maybe cancers or stuff like that. A woman has given birth and she has cancer. Now it may not be breast cancer, but maybe any other sort of cancer. And maybe the other sicknesses now that people keep talking about today. We've also now just gotten the awareness of sickle cells. We didn't know. Sickle cells is one of the biggest issues that we had possibly neglected. Mothers could have those issues of saying this mother was given birth, has sickle cells, and so what about if she breastfeeds her baby, who they do not know whether is also a carrier or whatever that means. Then the EMCTC and those other issues.
HIV.
Yes, exactly. How do they manage? Or what should be for those mothers who have given birth, because we'll not stop them from giving birth, but yet again, we need to breastfeed the children to growth.
So the idea here is that, because these are many conditions, but let me generalize first of all, that a mother with such a challenge should not, is advised to first go to the health facility where they are experts. They'll be able to give a guided information so that this mother is able to breastfeed. If you at all, it is, for example, if you have a breast cancer and you are unable to breastfeed, they will also give you an opportunity to find an alternative. Maybe that's the time when the child is given a breast milk substitute.
Okay.
But it will be based on a case by case. We don't generalize and say,
it is a case by case
since
scenario.
you have this, you don't. Since you have, no. Going to the facility to receive such information is very, very important. Things like HIV, where we want to eliminate HIV, and when a mother is HIV positive, the guidelines are very clear. But it is true that we promote breastfeeding for the first 6 months, regardless of the status of the mother. And then do complementary feeding here. This way you give breast milk along with the food. And we guide that you continue doing that up to 1 year. If the mother is positive. Then beyond which we do not, because we want to limit the exposure of this child to the risk as the child is eating. And now there you have the option of getting in a meal. And when you weigh the option is, you find that it is better to now cut off the breast milk. And since you have already started feeding, you can feed the child
then carry on with
the variety of a diversified diet until the child grows. But if the mother is positive and you have checked the child and the child is also positive, we actually say you continue breastfeeding up to 2 years.
Because you're not selling anything.
And it's actually much advantageous than stopping.
Exactly,
because already the immunity of the child has a way it will be compromised because of the HIV. So the guidance is there, and such mothers shouldn't stay back at home. They will actually get enough support, both psychosocially and medical, name it, that they will get when they reach the rest facility.
Okay, our time is running out, and very finally on this particular one, are there any other myths to debunk in as far as breastfeeding is concerned, apart from the urban lifestyles of I want to keep my shape, I want to keep my breast and do all these things? Are there any other myths in as far as breastfeeding is concerned that you think is stopping or failing people from breastfeeding?
There are quite a number of myths. One of them starts right from the time when the child is just born. Somebody thinks that the first milk is dirty. When you press it, it is yellowish, it's dirty, but yet that's the best milk. It acts as a vaccine. It helps the baby to stay well. They will press that one because it's dirty milk.
Yes.
And they will press it out. That myth is there.
And very common.
Yes. Others do not breastfeed the baby until the child has received a name. So you have to call the grandmother or the uncle, who is very far, to come and give the baby the name before they breastfeed. That will take maybe about 1 day. And during that time, what do you think they are giving? Warm water, mushroom soup, name it. Something else, but not breast milk. Now, those are all myths because the people have their own way of thinking about them.
Some give them even honey. They say just put a drop of honey.
I don't want to mention the others who said that they put alcohol. But
even alcohol.
Yeah. But a drop. To say this is our cultural thing. So, but the message is that there are many myths out there which need to be countered because as the word myths is, you don't have the correct scientific backing to do what is happening. Things like giving foods, we call them prelactio, which means before a child is given breast milk, there must be something first to the child. Those are the things that most times people do not know. And until that thing is given to the child, it could be a medicine, it could be anything, but prelactio, glucose. The longer you stay with the mother without introducing the baby to the breast milk, the more the breast milk or the factory thinks that there is no child.
Okay.
And it starts blocking.
Okay.
So the earlier the better.
Okay.
When we want it done within the first 1 hour, shortly after breast.
Finally, if anybody wanted to follow you, mothers wanted to talk to you more about this, how would they contact you? How would they get to you as we get out of studios?
As a person? Or as an institution?
As a ministry.
Yeah, as a ministry, like I said earlier, all health facilities where there are maternity services, we will be able to provide this information to all mothers We have generated all the information that they need to provide. We continue to do so, even trainings continue going on.
Okay.
So what the mothers, the fathers, anyone who wants to get information should not go to the witch doctor, should not go to the elders, but come to the facility. If you have that challenge of breastfeeding, you'll definitely be given the correct information, and you'll be a happy mother, you'll be a happy family, and we shall be a happy nation with our children growing very well.
Okay.
And that's what we need.
In one statement, what should people remember about breastfeeding as we end the month and as we continue to talk about breastfeeding throughout the year?
Breastfeeding is good for the baby, good for the mother, good for the family, children who are sick.
Shared responsibility.
Yes, and breastfeeding is a shared responsibility right from the individual to the nation at large.
Okay.
Everybody has a role to play.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Mr. Tim, a nutritionist from Mulago, from the Ministry of Health. I beg your pardon, not from Mulago Hospital, but from the Ministry of Health. Thank you so much for joining us this morning on GMU Extra, and of course for giving us more information on breastfeeding as we also conclude this month of August, which is a breastfeeding month. We will say it has a whole week of 1st to 7th gazetted for breastfeeding, but breastfeeding discussions, conversations, and quite a number of things continue till the end of the month, and you do not have to stop here and wait for August 2022. Carry on because there will be somebody giving birth next month, and in October, and in November, December, until again when we get to August next year. Thank you so much. My name is Uganda Samakola Ziksoka. Thanking Mr. Tim here, whom I've been with in studios this morning, and of course thanking our producers and my producers for making this a good show. For God and my country, we'll talk again tomorrow. Stay blessed and good morning.
From UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning.
Near Kabul airport this morning after an American air defense system reportedly intercepted 5 rockets targeting the site. An RT crew is in the country's